Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here, Tim Talks. I'm the author of the book, Social Selling, Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. And with me today, I've got James Muir. James has written an amazing book. If you've not got it already, then you should do. I'm just trying to get it up there. It's called The Perfect Close. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk to James about how you do the perfect close. And at the end of today, you're going to get at least one technique to allow you to go and close more deals. So, James, great to have you on. It's really exciting to have you. You've written a really awesome book. I really enjoyed it. But I'm a bit of a sales bore and a sales process bore. So, I lap this sort of stuff up. Tell everybody about first of all, where they can find you.
If folks want to contact me, they can reach me at puremuir.com. That's puremuir.com. I'm also active on LinkedIn and Twitter. And if they're interested in the book, of course, they can download a preview along with all the models, some of what we'll talk about hopefully on this call, and a special report called The 7 Deadly Myths of Closing. And all that's just free off the website.
And your website is?
puremuir.com.
Okay. And you've got loads of additional content on there that people can download for free.
Absolutely. There's I'm just giving you the smallest piece. The most popular thing is that report of the 7 deadly myths, but there are sample agendas that can be used in meetings. There's planning forms. There are models of all 5 variations of the perfect close. So all of that's for free off the website.
Fantastic. So it's a fantastic book. I really enjoyed it. What was your motivation behind writing the book, James?
Well, in my experience as a manager, what I found was that there was this problem where salespeople and non-salespeople were all experiencing, and that is that they're uncomfortable or they just didn't know what to say when it came time to get a commitment at the end of their meeting. And so they're either saying the wrong stuff, or in most cases, they just weren't saying anything. They just weren't doing anything at all. And statistically, by the way, not asking for any commitment at all is really a much larger problem than asking in the wrong way. About 50 to 90% of all sales interactions end without any commitment being asked for whatsoever. So the perfect close I created to teach the best practice in closing is just 2 questions, no pressure, and 95% effective. So people can feel confident going into any interaction that they can advance their sale in a really non-confrontational way.
Because I was always told closing, you ask questions like your pen or mine, or things like that, which was the the question that you were supposed to ask. Go on.
I was just saying that would be the alternate choice close, and that's a manipulative close, right? It's got a loaded answer.
Yes, yeah. Yes. The thing about the book is that you give lots of really good examples. So you kind of go, it's here's some theory, and then you go, and this is what happened in my experience. And there's lots of really good, examples from your extensive life within sales, and that for me, brought all of the theory that you were saying alive. And you go, I've done that, or I've seen somebody do that, and I remember that mistake. And that was really important for me. You've put a lot into that. What's your view?
Yeah, you know why that's there is because I've trained salespeople for years, my own teams for years, and no disrespect, but unless you spell it out very specifically, they will always find a new way to get it wrong. So I tend to provide really good and really detailed and more examples than you need. If you get it after the 3rd example, well, then great, you can just move on. Mm-hmm. But by giving them all these very different variations, they're going to find one there that matches, that resonates with them, and then that they can adopt that for themselves. And so I try not to leave any loose ends. I try to make sure there's an example of everything that you might want to do in there, so you walk away with perfect clarity on how to do it.
So one of the things you give a great example of is giving the customer homework. You talk about an example about where you had a salesperson that was doing lots of demos within this big company, and the view within the salesman and the salesperson's organization was that, you were just about to close a big deal, but in fact you were nowhere close to it. And it was just because they knew the CIO, and the CIO was doing something because they were friends and helping them, and you were expending lots of energy. But and what the salesperson didn't do was give that person some homework and say, go away and do this for me, because in a way that's a way of testing and qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I remember that like it was yesterday. That was a fiasco in our company because it was a multi-million dollar, what we thought was a multi-million dollar account. We paraded all over multiple states, multiple healthcare organizations doing these demonstrations, when in reality, the CIO was just indulging our sales rep because he knew him, right? And he thought he was doing him a favor. And I think he genuinely hoped that there would be this grassroots, by showing the product to everyone everywhere, that suddenly everyone would want it and they would make a change. But there was really no strategic direction from the company's perspective to make any change whatsoever. And so what it was essentially doing is wasting a massive amount of money on our part. And so this idea that you say, giving them homework, I like a shortcut way. I explain it very often is, if I have a ball, then I'm just going to throw the customer the ball, right? And I'm going to see if they take it, and if they catch it and then they throw it back to me, well, then I know they want to play ball. But if I throw the ball and then nothing happens, well, then that tells me they're just not quite ready yet. And what happened in this particular case is we never really made them put any effort besides just letting us show up and do presentations. We never had them do anything on their side. And we use that as a litmus test, or a way to gauge just how engaged the customer really is. Because as salespeople, the only thing we really have is our time. That's it.
Yes.
And so we want to make sure we're putting that time into the right and the highest and best opportunities for ourselves. And what happened in this case is we all got excited when this guy was indulging us to do all these presentations, and we thought there was a real possibility we were going to get this multi-million-dollar account, when in reality there really was no interest at all.
And we, as salespeople, we only have 200 days in a year to make our number. It's actually not very much. And all of a sudden, how many times have we been in sales jobs where you go, where did the last 3 months go? Oh my God, what am I going to do? I've just burned my way through 3 months of time and I've got nowhere.
Exactly.
It's just so easy to burn through time. You've got to work out where you're going to place that time and place your bets.
And so using an advance, which is the term Neil Rackham came for, moving the sale forward in a little way, using that as a way to judge whether or not the customer is ready or is qualified, is a very excellent, it's a best practice in sales. Is we just ask for a little something, and then if they're playing ball with us and they'll do the little homework that we assign them, well, then that tells us that it's a good opportunity and a way to prioritize that opportunity over others.
So in the book, I really enjoyed the leading up to your the perfect close chapter, and for me, because it was like a revision of what is best practice. Because we always go into, we go to a meeting and we just meet our colleague in the car park, and we say, what we're going to talk about? Well, we're going to go in and we'll have a little chat, but you're going like, no. What you need to do is you need to set an agenda. You need to be working about who's going to attend and doing all the things that we kind of know that we need to be doing, but we don't do it. And that was a really good refresher in terms of that, and the way that you set it up is that if you're not doing all these things, how can you get to a point where you're in effect asking for the business? And we'll talk about that in a moment. Because you need, it's the Usain Bolt, when he's going to run at the Olympics, he's taken 4 years to prepare for that. 8 seconds where he's going to go after they fire the gun. We've got to do all that preparation. We just can't turn up after eating McDonald's for 4 years and turn up at the Rio Olympics and think we're going to win. We have to be like, professional salespeople. I mean, you spent a lot of time on that and going through that. I mean, you're preaching to me as a converted person, but in terms of your view to the listener, what do you think about, really taking the time to prepare for what you're doing in a sales process?
Well, it's actually very well studied. Neil Rackham studied it first, and he says it this way, that sales success is correlated with planning more than any other factor, meaning that our ability to plan and take the time to plan in advance is more strongly correlated to success than anything else. It's the number one thing. So just winging it out in the parking lot before you go in is a strategy for disaster. And the thing is, planning isn't actually that hard. I think it's just that most salespeople are very action-oriented people, and so they just want to get in there and do it. But if we just take a little bit of time to plan in advance, and work smart in addition to working hard, then our effectiveness goes up massively from that. And so, like you've said, a good portion of what the book is just preparing for that moment when we actually ask the perfect close. Is how do I know what it is that is the best advance for this particular encounter? And then, of course, how to ask that in a non-confrontational way where we're going to get 95% success.
Yeah, and I was talking to my business partner earlier today, and he started selling hi-fi, and he was straight out of college, and someone said, so at this point through the process, this is where you ask for the business. He said, so what do I do? What do I ask? And I think quite often salespeople are in a position where they go, well, I really don't know what I'm supposed to say. It's back to the your pen or my type question. And basically what he was told in that point was that he was said, if everything's okay, let's go upstairs and sort the paperwork out. And he was at that job for 2 years. And every time he went to close a deal, that's what he said. Mm-hmm. So go on.
I was just going to say, like I said, statistically, 50 to 90% of these encounters end with no commitment being asked for at all. And if you look into that, if you peel that back and figure out, well, why is that happening? It's because the person who is the sales agent isn't comfortable with any method that they've been taught to ask, right? They feel like it's either manipulating or it's creating pressure. And so because they don't know a way to do it that they're comfortable with, they just end up doing nothing.
Yes.
And so, that was the major issue that this book is designed to address is, hey, what's a way I can ask that is in full alignment with my personal values and doesn't feel confrontational and doesn't feel manipulative?
And I mean, what I liked about your chapter, the chapter 12, the perfect close, is that in terms of the terminology, it's not manipulative, it's not confrontational. And the way that you put it is actually, I would say that.
And hopefully there's enough examples in there that they can find one of them that's like, that's.
And I mean, actually, in terms of the book, that's the bit at the end, the bit at the end, which is actually the final chapter about how to do the perfect close. And you walk through, and there's some fantastic, even diagrams, because I'm quite visual, in terms of, this is what the kind of close should look like. And it's something, I could do that. And it feels really comfortable in the way that you actually set that up. So do you want to talk to people about, how do you do the perfect close?
Sure. All right. Well, let's draw on what you already said, which is that before we give them the close, it's important to go into any interaction with some outcomes in mind. That is the planning part you were talking about. And so, what do you want to happen as a result of this interaction? And you should have an ideal advance, right? What's the best possible outcome? And then you want a couple of alternatives. And the reason we're going to do that is just in case the ideal one turns out to be not appropriate at this moment. We want to fall back, or if it turns out they take the ideal one, we might be able to get these other ones in addition to that, right? So that's the planning part. So once you've got your ideal advance and a couple of alternatives, then it's really easy to do this with no pressure and a high probability of success. So there's just two questions. And the first question is, does it make sense to X? And X would be your ideal advance in that example. So, if I used an example for you, it would be like, does it make sense for us to schedule an assessment to see what our best options are, right? In that example, the assessment would be the ideal advance, right? And there's really only two things that they can respond with. They're either going to say yes or they're going to say no. And if they say yes, great, we just got our ideal advance. We're off to the races. If they say no, then we're going to go to the second question. And there are 5 variations of this. The most basic, the kindergarten version, is where the second question is, well, what do you think is a good next step then, right? And then we just throw it back to them. Yep. And what I can tell you is that in 90% of cases, the customer just suggests a very logical next step for where they're at in their buying process, right? And so sometimes we can gauge that correctly, but what's beautiful about this is you don't have to really know perfectly where they're at in their buying process. If you throw them the ball back, say, well, what do you think is a good next step then? It's going to suggest to you what the next step is, and then you take it, and we keep getting momentum going. And most importantly, the best close is the one that it paces the sale at the rate the customer's ready for. And so they're always ready for the one they suggest, right? So that's the very two basic question one that we start with, which is, does it make sense to X? And if that doesn't work, then we would just fall back to, all right, well, what do you think is a good next step then? So now we can amp that up just a little bit by using our alternates, right? So if, for example, they say, well, or they hesitate, does it make sense for us to set up this assessment? They kind of hesitate. Well, we could say, we know other clients at this stage sometimes do Y. does it make sense for us to do Y? And that's going to be one of your alternate advances that you set up.
Right.
So we're just sort of suggesting a very logical next step that other clients do. And in that case, again, we're back to that essentially the same question. So they're either going to say yes, they're going to say no. If they say no, you can fall back to another one, or if they say yes, great, then we schedule it. And if you do it that way, we can up our percent that we're successful from, around 90 to maybe 95%. Now, the flip of that is if they accept the first one, you say, hey, does it make sense to do this assessment? And they say, sure. Then we can say, well, other clients at this stage sometimes also do this other thing. Does it make sense to do that too? And then we can keep adding on. Again, remember, we want to pace it at whatever they're ready for. And occasionally, they're ready to go a lot faster than you ever gave them a credit for. Yes. I had this group that we went and visited in Sierra Vista, Arizona, and we were presenting to an IT guy, and we thought it was the wrong group of people, actually, that we were presenting to. So our ideal advance was to present to the right group of people. And so we do the presentation, and we get, at the end, you say, does it make sense for us to show these other guys? And he goes, yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm like, okay, great, check, we got one. So I look at my list. What's the next on the list? It's about getting conversion data. So I said, well, does it make sense for us to take a look at your conversion data to see what we can bring over? He goes, yeah, great idea. All right, well, great, two. I got the second one on my list. And then I look at my third one on my list, and it's to have our technical teams talk to make sure we can use their gear. So I said, well, does it make sense for have our technical teams talk to make sure we can use all of your equipment? He goes, sure. And I'm like, wow, I'm spent. I got 3 out of 3. And I thought I was just presenting to the wrong guy. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the add-on, which is what this variation is called, you say something different. At the end, you say, are there any other logical steps we should be thinking about right now?
Okay, or should you're passing it back to them again.
Yeah, we throw them the ball, right? So what does this guy says? This guy says, well, our legal team's kind of slow. Is there any chance we could get a copy of your agreement so that we can look it over? And I'm like, are you kidding me? I would have never dreamed in a million years that I could have walked into that particular opportunity and got to the point where I could give him a contract. And so in this case, this guy was ready to move at a much faster rate than we were ready, but just using this it's essentially the same model every time. Does it make sense to? Does it make sense to? We end up pacing it at exactly the rate they're ready to go. And if they're ready to go a little slower, that's okay. We just want to move it forward at the rate that they're comfortable with. On the other hand, sometimes they want to go faster, and this allows us to do that. So I don't think anybody has a hang up with saying, does it make sense? In fact, it might be worth, Tony or Tim, to look at the nuance of that. Why is it different than a closed question? And most closed questions essentially boil down to...
We were always told in sales, you've got to ask open questions, and then you've got to ask closed questions and stuff,
Yeah, so, and this is sort of a variation of that. It's both open and closed at the same time, right? But what the nuance of the perfect closed question that makes it different is almost every other closed question is, will you buy my stuff? It's some variation of, will you buy X?
Yeah.
And how this is different is at its core, does it make sense? We're not asking them to do anything. We're not asking them to buy anything. It's at its core, it's a timing question. Is the timing right to do this thing? And while that's very subtle, it's a very important difference, because let's just say they say no. They haven't said, I'm not going to buy your stuff. They haven't said, I'm not going to take your action. They're just telling you, oh, well, the timing's not right for that.
Timing's not right.
Yeah. And that leaves us on emotionally much higher ground than if we said, hey, will you buy my stuff? And then they say no. You're like, oh, wow. Right. So again, it's a very subtle nuance, but it keeps the entire process much more facilitative, non-confrontational, and emotionally on much higher ground than every other closed method that's out there. And that's really what makes it the best practice.
And it's just so simple in terms of the method, and as I say, as you quite rightly say, in terms of preparing your alternatives, asking for those, and then asking them back, and it just seems it's not necessarily softer, but all that the stuff about will you buy my stuff usually just irritates people.
Exactly. What happens if you ask them and the timing is not right for that, at the moment we move faster than the customer's ready for, that's exactly when it starts to feel like it's manipulation to the customer. That's when they start to feel manipulated. So by just saying, hey, does it make sense, or is the timing right? Well, we've eliminated that, right? Because we're just asking them, at what pace are you ready to go right now?
Yeah, and I think if we go by the old sales adage that always be closing, ABC, and that means people take that as, you have to walk in and say, "Hi, my name's Tim Hughes, and will you buy my stuff?" And yeah, I'll have a coffee, and will you buy my stuff? Because you've always got to be closing. But by actually by saying, does it make sense? In effect, what you're doing is that it's like a rather than it's like a cruise missile where it's constantly reconfirming where you are in the sale and constantly qualifying where you are, and you're instantly getting feedback from the client in terms of where because it's just too easy to go in and think you're further ahead or further back behind than you actually are. The only person that knows where you are in the sale is the customer.
Bingo. And you really hit on something really important, because as a manager, right, I'm going to hire people, and when I put them into the field, ideally they would know everything about the sales process, everything about my product, and I could put them in the field and immediately have them productive. But in reality, it's not like that. They have a lot to learn. And so what's beautiful about the perfect close is they don't really have to have an accurate assessment of where the customer's at. They don't have to know, right? And really experienced people do know, but inexperienced people can be productive right out of the chute, because they're just going to ask the customer, does it make sense to do this thing? And then if the answer is no, literally it teaches the new sales rep what to do on the fly. When we say, hey, well, what do you think is a good next step? They'll slowly be learning what all the next steps are in the sales process, because the customer walks them through it, right? Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's great. So James, one thing also, just want to change the subject. One thing also that you talk about in your book is you talk about the experience of the quarter end close, and actually going in and asking for discounts at quarter end, and you have a direct experience of that. Do you want to can you share about that, or have a discussion about your experience of what happened in that case? Because you spoke to a salesperson and said, well, they wanted to offer a discount, and they asked the wrong question.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what you're getting around is the fifth variation, which we call something special. It's probably the most popular application of the question. So let me just see if I can quickly summarize in the story and how this kind of came about. Is actually, for me as a rep, that actually created this original model is that we were back in the olden days, had a whiteboard, and I had 10 opportunities, exactly 10 opportunities on the board. And a quarter, it's a publicly traded company. They call us, hey, we're short, we need money. Go out there and offer all these guys discounts to see if you can get them to close this quarter. Now, one of the 10 was already ready to go, right? So being a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, brand new rep, what I do is I go out and I offer all of these clients discounts, right? And to see if we can accelerate it. And I'll tell you my opinion on that in a second. But what ended up happening is at the end of the quarter, only the one that was already ready to go took advantage of the discount and closed, right? And so, next quarter happens, and of course, how many of those other 9 do you think forgot about the discount, right? We told them straight up, you won't get this discount next quarter. You have to buy it this quarter, right? But how many actually forgot that?
None at all.
Zero.
They all expected the same discount. You basically,
of course,
giving it away. And that first one that was ready to go, you probably could have got it at a higher margin.
You nailed it. So that's what got me thinking about this question. I thought, and then the next quarter, we actually ended up getting 8 more. Okay, so we got almost all of these opportunities, but they all came in at a lower margin because I had to go telegraph and give that discount, right? So I got to thinking, there must be some way to ask if they're ready without telegraphing what the discount is, right? And that's what the something special application is, which I'll mention in a second. So, so flash forward now. Now I'm managing guys, and I have a sales rep that comes to me. It's like last week of the quarter, and he's got a deal that's ready to close. They've got the proposal, they've been through all the presentations and everything, and he thinks if we just give him a discount, we can get it this quarter. So it sounds pretty good. So what I do is I say, well, here, go and ask him this question, right? And so I give him, we wrote it down verbatim on a piece of paper, and the something special application is, does it make sense for us to see, or for me to see, if we can do something special for you, if we can get everything wrapped up by the end of the quarter, okay, yes, or end of month, or whatever your deadline is. So that's what we wrote down, right? Does it make sense to see if I can get something special for you if we can get everything wrapped up by the end of the quarter? Now, there's a special nuance to the way we've done it. We haven't told them that there even is a concession possible. We're just asking him if the timing is right. And so He goes, well, what if they say yes? Then what's the something special? I said, well, there's lots of things we can do, right? We can give them terms. We can play with the deposit. We can play with the scope of the hours or the licenses. I mean, there's lots of stuff. And he goes, but could we get a discount? I'm like, yeah, sure. A discount is one of the things that we can do, right? And so he goes, okay, great. I'll call him right now. So I see the guy in the hall about 2 hours later, and he's looking all depressed. And I go, well, how'd your call go? He goes, oh, it went terrible. Your question didn't work at all. He got mad, and now I have to create a new proposal with a bigger discount on it. I'm like, man, it usually doesn't go like that. What happened? He goes, well, he got mad, and so I got to go do a proposal. And so he goes off. So we were testing a phone system at that time that allow us to coach reps by listening in on their calls. And so I went and listened to this call. And what happened is, instead of saying, does it make sense to see if we can do something special for you, if you can get it wrapped up by the end of the quarter, he instead says, I can get you a bigger discount if you close before the end of the month. That's what he says. So wholly different than what I told him to ask. And what happened, and I listened to the whole call, this guy was already sold. He was already, I could tell he was already sold, but his board meeting was on the 15th of the next month. And so I could tell, he didn't actually say it, but I could tell that he thought there was no chance in the next 2 days he was going to be able to pull together his whole board meeting to get this, this discount that he'd offered. So he did get mad, right? He goes, I thought I already had your best and final offer.
You would be mad.
And so, right. And so now, now my salesperson looks like a scumbag, actually, is what it looks like, right? That he didn't offer him the best and final offer. And so that's when he said, go back and get the proposal. And then, of course, we actually did get the deal, but we got it the next month at a lower margin because he did it wrong. So the takeaway from this is that it's a two-stepper. It's a two-step process. The first step using this application is find out if the timing is right? If they say, sure, we could do something if we can get it wrapped up. I mean, usually what they say is, well, we're in a position we could do something. What is it? Yeah, what is the thing? And then as a salesperson, you don't even want to have anything in mind at that point. You want to say, well, I don't know, but I know that there's an interest. So let me go find out what we can do, and then we can come back. And then what I recommend is that that reps actually ask the client, well, what would be of most value to you? What would you get the most mileage out of? And what you'll be surprised is it's maybe a third of the time it's actually a discount, but the other 2/3 of the time they're going to suggest some concession that you weren't even thinking about. It might be more training, or it might be terms, or there's a whole lot of ways of offering concessions that have nothing to do with
training or consulting. Is usually the thing that I know that customers come back with. It's confirmation or insurance that the project is going to work, because that's what the customer is worried about, not the discount on the license.
Exactly. And it's, as salespeople, they tend to project that it's always about the price, when in reality, like you've said, it's about the risk. They just want to make sure they succeed, right? And so if we listen to what they say, and then it's a two-stepper, right? So now you can go back and you can brainstorm amongst each other. Hey, how can we give them what they want? And then you come back, say, yeah. And now you've got a win-win scenario where they get the consent. In fact, they might even wanted something that for you is really inexpensive. And now you get it in the time frame that you want. So that's the way that you use this particular application of the perfect close. The something special is, it doesn't make sense to see if we can get something or do something special for you if we can get it wrapped up by X, whenever your deadline is. And then when they give you that, then you come back and you create a win-win scenario as a second step. But you don't try to shortcut it. You don't try to throw it all together in the same one. Being efficient in this case is not effective.
James, that's been fantastic. Really insightful. Thank you very much. Just remind everybody again where they can get hold of you.
Sure. Best way to reach out is to go to puremuir.com. It's PUREMUIR.com. Again, all of the stuff that we've talked about, all the models, all the diagrams that are in the book, you can actually just download all of that for free, all 5 models, right? You can just go download them for free off the website. So that's a great, easy way to see if that book is for you. Of course, I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm active on Twitter. And then if they want to get the book, of course, they can just go to Amazon. And if you want, you can type in close sales. I'll be the #1 thing that appears in that list. Or you can type in the perfect close. Same thing. It'll show up. And then there you go.
Yeah. And I read it and I think it's a fantastic book. I mean, it taught me something about closing, and the webinar today has been fantastic at sharing that. James, thank you so much for your time. And
thank you, Tim, for having me on.
You're welcome. And I hope to see you soon. Thanks, James. Cheers.
too.
Bye.